Okay, we'll do now in the Maimer, in Mamorim Melukotim. So this Maimer was said on Tuesday, Yom Gimel, on Tuesday. Tov Kislev. Tov is 17. It was said on the 17th of Kislev, in the year Tovshin Mem Aleph, before Mincha. Not sure exactly the setting was. It says here, and later on they published this in the booklet for the conclusion and bringing in the Sefer Torah and Chanukah Tovshin Mem Aleph. They use this mimer. It must be that they wrote a Sefer Torah. See, it says like this: they celebrated a conclusion and bringing in the Sefer Torah, which was written on the name of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. It was 50 years from their marriage. So the Rebbe got married in Tafresh Peites. 50 years was Tafshin Lamet Tes. So I guess they started to write the Sefer Torah in honor of the Rebbe's 50th wedding anniversary. And it took them, I guess, a year, a little more, Lametes, and this was in Mem Aleph, during Chanukah. In those days, they finished it, and they brought it to the Rebbe, I guess. And also 30 years of the Rebbe's marriage, Rebbe's leadership. That was the Rebbe began in Tafshin Yud Aleph, and in Tafshin Mem Aleph it was 30 years since the Rebbe's leadership, and this was done. The celebration took place in Yutas Kislev in the Shul Beis Menachem Kfar Chabad in the Holy Land. Apparently, they brought the Sefer Torah later on to the Rebbe to 770, and the Rebbe gave this mimer. So when the Rebbe gave this mimer was the 17th day of Kislev, and then they published it when they did the celebration that we said before. The celebration took place in Beis Menachem in Kfar Chabad, and this was done in honor of the Rebbe. This was a mimer the Rebbe gave. I have to check it up to make sure that this is accurate, that this was said by the Rebbe when they brought him the Sefer Torah. All right, in any event, this is the introduction to the mimer. But now let's do the mimer itself. So the famous pasuk, we know that on Yutas Kislev, and this was the 17th of Kislev, so this was close enough to Yutas Kislev, and also both, it's very interesting that both side the Mittler Rebbe and side the Alter Rebbe were freed when they were reciting the pasuk of Poda B'Sholem Nafshi. The Mittler Rebbe would say the Tillim as it's divided by the days of the month. So the month of Yud, the day of Yud in the month of Kislev, includes the chapter Nun Hey, in which we say of Tehillim, which we say Poda B'Sholem Nafshi. And while he was reciting this pasuk, he was freed. The same thing goes for the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe would say that Tehillim as it's divided by the days of the week. The Alter Rebbe's freedom came on Tuesday, and the shir of the Perik Nun Hey for Tuesday is included in Yom Shlishi. While he was saying, as the Alter Rebbe writes, the pasuk Poda B'Sholem Nafshi, so the Eibishter freed him. He was freed by the Eibishter. So that's why it's a usual pasuk in association with Yutas Kislev that we recite and expound on the pasuk of Poda B'Sholem Nafshi. Poda b'sholom nafshi mikrovli ki berabim hoyu imodi. So basically, King David HaMelech is saying that Hashem redeemed my soul and he gave me my life, redeemed my life in a peaceful way, which implies that there's two ways of redemption. Could be sometimes in a peaceful way and sometimes in a non-peaceful way. He emphasizes in this passage that it was done in a peaceful way. He also says mikrovli, from the war with me. The word krav means war, but there's also the name for war can also be milchama. Krovli represents a closeness because there could be sometimes a war which is waged from a distance, and sometimes it could be mikrovli. And then he says, Ki berabim hoyu imodi, for the many war with me, as we're going to explain, two translation in the word berabim hoyu imodi, either because there were many people that were with me, which means that they were praying for the success of David HaMelech, that the reason why Pod B'Shalom Nafshi Mikrovli, because even the people that were fighting, the people of Shaul that were fighting against David, they were also praying for the success of David. So that the Rabbim, those many, were really imodi. They were really with David, even though they were with Shaul, but they were really praying for the success of David HaMelech. That's one interpretation. And another interpretation is Ki berabim hoyu imodi, that there was many that went along with this Poda B'Sholem Nafshi. There was a Rabbi Mimodi. Let's look inside. We do in the UK Kveit Kedushas Admur Hazokin Baal Hageula the Yutes Kislev. So it's known the specific issue raised by the Alter Rebbe, who is the master of the redemption. Yutes Kislev is the day that he was released from prison. And also B'noi Memali Mekoime, and his son who took his place, Kveit Kedushas Admur Hamtsoi. That's the Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, Baal HaGeula, the Yud Kislev, the ones whose redemption took place on Yud Kislev. So they have specific issues that they raised on this pasuk. Masha b'pasuk ze mudgosh, the fact that in this pasuk is emphasized Loi rak inyan hapediya v'hageula b'chlal, not only the redemption and the release, freedom, the pediya in general, Ella, but the pasuk says shahapediya he b'sholim davke. This says here that this freedom, this redemption comes specifically, it says, in a peaceful way. Pada b'sholim, was b'sholim. Also, they talk about the other specific language used in this pasuk, the gamma shekosuv mikrovli. Also, what it says from the war with me, but it doesn't say v'loi milchama ukayetzebai, and it doesn't say from war. It says mikrov. Krov means war, but milchama also means war. Here it says mikrovli. Why does it say the word to me instead of just saying mikrov? So he says that the Badia Shabadia he li Poda B'Shlom mikrov li is to me. What's the emphasis in the pasuk that is to me? Gam tzarich lahavin oimrei. Also, we need to understand, what is this pasuk saying? Ki berabim hoyu imodi, because the many were with me. The mashma that it appears from the pasuk, shazehu hatam al zeh shepoda b'sholem nafshi goyme. This is the reason why he redeemed my soul b'sholem, is because Rabbi Hoyu Modi. What is the idea? Based on the Kuda Sabiyur Bazem. What is the point of explanation that the Rebbe shares? The Pediya Shayich Rak Kasher Yesh Mitziyah Shel Inyan HaMenagid. When could there be redemption? Only if there is an existence of an opponent. If there is no opponent, the Kasher Ein Mitziyah Shel Tzad Shekeneged. If there is no existence, if it doesn't exist, it doesn't have, there's no such a opposing side. There's no need, and there is no space, no room for redemption. There's nothing to redeem from. Since the holiness is the only path, and that's the only entity that there is Kedusha. There is no opponent, then there can be no redemption. But when there is an opposing side, there is an entity of darkness and foolishness, etc. There needs to be the redemption from the darkness and the foolishness. When there exists darkness and foolishness, we have to be redeemed from it. And what's the benefit when we have challenges, when we have darkness, when we have foolishness, that we overcome those darkness, we overcome those foolishness? The advantage is that we get additional light that comes from darkness specifically. This redemption brings that the holiness should be in a way the Yisrael that there should be advantage to the light when it comes out of darkness, and the advantage of wisdom when it comes out of foolishness, which means when you're challenged and there is an existence of an opponent and it blocks and interferes and you overcome, then you get an advantage of light when it comes from darkness, an advantage of chokhmah when it comes to sichus. Hainu. What it means that through the redemption from darkness and foolishness, through that specifically becomes the advantage of light and wisdom. And the loy rak, we're not talking about a Yisrael, not only bekamos, not only quantity wise, that there's a lot more quantity light, there's a lot more wisdom, elogam Yisrael be'echus, but also a advantage in the quality, that the quality is much greater. So that's the first thing. Podo. There is the first word in the pasuk, podo pediya. There needs to be redemption in order to get to the higher light. And now, how is the redemption takes place? This redemption can be in two ways. It can be redemption in a way of war, or it can be in a peaceful way to overcome the opponent. So the posik articulates and comes up. The novelty in our posik is Shepedia Zuhi B'Sholem. This is a peaceful redemption. That's the B'Sholem. And then That's also in two ways, whether it's mikrovli, whether the opponent that I'm being redeemed is close to me or is far from me. B'zeh gufa. In this itself, hein b'milchama, hein b'sholem, whether when the war is taking place and then when the peace that Hashem brings about, the podo b'sholem, efshel liyis b'beize fanim. That can be in two ways. Im hapediya hi ba'ofen sha'imdim b'kiruv el hamizbarer v'hanivda. If the redemption is in a way that you are standing close to the one who is being sorted out and being redeemed. Although he has not yet been sorted out, he's not yet been redeemed, but you're close to redemption, or you're far from him. So over here, we're saying, first of all, that it's Bisholim, and this pedia that you are doing and redemption from the menagid is mikrovli. Here also the pasuk articulates and says that the pedia he mikrovli. Hainu be'oifon the kiruv. That's in a way of closeness. As explained in the Maimer Podu B'Sholem for the Mitlaret. And then we say Mikrov Li. Mikrov Li, that's also over there. It says Li is Pedia B'Toikvit. What Li means a redemption that is a forceful one, Shein Mokim L'Shinui, so that there is no room for change. It means it's a redemption that is a lasting redemption. To call mokim shenemar li einoi zoz li olam. For any place, wherever it says li, it never moves. It's always. So that means mikrov li. So we explained, podo, there's an opponent. Bisholim, the way it's done is in a peaceful way, not through war. Mikrov means the closeness. Li means that it's a forceful one, because if it says the kol mokish never li, it never moves, it's always there. So what's the reason for this redemption? Why do we have this redemption? Is berabim hoyimodim. Over there we have two interpretations. What is the meaning berabim hoyimodim? Aleph, number one, the koyi al tfilas harabim, that this refers to the prayer of the many, those who that prayed for David HaMelech, and Beis, the Koyi al HaGeula, that this refers to the redemption, that Berabim Hoyu Imodi, many are with me, they joined in this redemption. It goes on the Geula that there were many, Sha'Geula Hi Gam Shel Harabim, that this redemption is also of the many. Valderech Haloshen Hayedua, as the known language that we use, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Lo Yoisi Bilvad Gol HaKodesh Baruch Hu, that it's not just me alone that the Eibishter has redeemed, but all those that B'Shem Yisrael Yechuna, which basically means that the redemption is Barabim, is something which is a matter for everyone. Ois Gimel. This talks about the war that David HaMelech waged against the people that tried to hurt him, and the whole story, but we have everything also in our spiritual life, in the Avodas Hashem, the struggles and the wars that we have to wage. Kol inyonim eila, all of these matters, yeshnam ba'avodas ha'odam, also exist in the service of man. Kimavur b'hadrushim, as explained in my Mamorim. But then move on. From this we understand sheyeshnam b'Torah, that since it's also in the service of man, we also have in Torah a similar poda b'sholem, because the Torah is considered also like an Odom. So we say Zois HaTorah Odom. So if man has it, we also have a similar idea in Torah. V'alpi Masha Omru Razal. And really, based on what our sages tell us, it's not only because they're by the human, it's also in Torah, but our sages tell us that Hashem looked in the Torah and then he created the world. So that means the world, the human being, everything starts off from the Torah. The way we read it in the Torah, that the Eibishter created man, that's where it all started, and then man was created. So it starts in the Torah. Move on. So based on that, it's understood the Adrabah. These ideas over here, they start in Torah. And from that, it goes down to the world. So everything starts from Torah. To explain this idea of Poda B'Sholem as it is in the Torah. Hine Yadua, it's known the Torah lay b'shamayim here. The Torah is not in the heavens, which means that the final resolution of Torah, the halacha, is here, is not above. The Gemara relates that they try to figure out a halacha, and they said to be a baskel, various signs from above. It says the Torah is not in the heavens, and that doesn't prove anything. The Torah was given below on the earth specifically. So since the Torah finds itself below in a place of darkness and foolishness, that's why we have to redeem Torah, because Torah is in below, in darkness and foolishness, and we have to redeem it. And that through this redemption, you get more advantageous light from darkness. So that through redeeming Torah, you get additional light. As it's known, the Rebbe explains, what would it mean, the idea of redemption? So it's known that that when you talk about the upper worlds, what's obvious in the higher world is godliness. The existence and the function of godliness, that's obvious. What's the novelty? That there's entities outside of godliness, that there could be something else, because godliness is obvious that it's there, and that there is anything else is a novelty, because it doesn't really exist there as an entity. But when we talk about below, that's totally opposite of this. The hapshitus hu hametzius. The obvious in our world is the entities, what is in existence. That's obvious, what we see, the entities, we accept that, oh, that is obvious. But the novelty is, to also give us an understanding that there's also godliness, That's something which is an added dimension to what we know. Above, it's obvious that Hashem, and everything else is a novelty. We don't know about it. We have to sort of learn about it. In the world below, we actually only see existence of the world, and we have to learn about Hashem, know that that's a novelty, Elikus. So when you can reveal that, Begilu Helikus, Shetzorich Liis His Chachus. So this revelation in this world of godliness that needs to be this renewal, we have to recognize Hashem. Harizeh Inyan Hapadia. That is the idea of redemption. You're redeeming the this world and bringing it into real perspective to that novelty that really there is Hashem, that Hashem is runs the world. Similar is Torah. That while Torah is dressed up in physical matter, in order to really comprehend that it's really Torah Hashem much beyond our seichel. And you recognize that the Torah is godly. That's called the redemption of Torah, that you see that it's not, you're taking it out from its physicality. You're poida, that's the padiyah, and bringing it to the levels. In this itself, there is various ways. Generally speaking, there's two ways. The kshem sheba'avodas ha'odom. We're talking about in the service of man in general. Here we're talking about specifically about the redemption of Torah. But when we talk about service of man includes Torah and mitzvahs, study of Torah and the observance of mitzvahs. The difference between the study of Torah and mitzvahs, study of Torah is considered in a peaceful way, whereas the mitzvahs, or the davening, or it calls it the avodas hatfilah, it's done through battle. The same sheba'avodas ha'odom, and he's going to extend it to the study of Torah, just like in the service of man. Yesh na pediyah ba'ofen shel milchama upediyah b'sholem. There is the two ways of redemption, whether it's in a way of war or it's a way of a peaceful way. That's the difference between the service of davening and the study of Torah. Study of Torah is considered a pediyah b'sholem, a peaceful pediyah, redemption. Davening is mikrovli. We also learned it at last in the other mimer, how shas sloisa, shas krova, when you daven there, you have to fight with the nefesh habahamis, the level of iskafia. But that's in general avodas odom. Al derech zeh b'Torah gufa. So similar in Torah itself, yesh kamo shnei yifanim. There's also several two ways. Oifen shel limud haTorah. The one way we learn Torah, kamoi shekosu, like the pasuk says, chanoich lenar al pidarke. One way is we educate the youngster on his way, following his path. As the Rambam talks at length in the commentary of the Mishnayos, that you need to search for many ideas, so that the study and the education should be fitting to the path, to the style of the person who's learning. In this case, hanar, chanoich lanar al pidarke. Find the right way to teach the youth. Lefi mamodei umatzovi b'isui sho, according to his standing, his situation at that time that you're teaching him. That's one way. So one way is to adjust according to the necessity, to the student, to the nar, what you're teaching. Yes, no, but there is yet another way of studying Torah. That you're learning the Torah as it is in the heavens. What does it mean? He's learning Torah over here. Although he's learning the Torah in this world, what does it mean learning in the heavens? The style of his learning, that he has no connection at that time to the existence of the world. He's just on a higher plane at the time that he's studying. He has no connection with worldly matters. So within Torah itself, you can be learning in a way in which you have to bring it down and find ways to learn it according to the style, or you can learn Torah as it's in Shamayim, which is beyond any connection to the world. And just as there is these distinctions, differences, how we study Torah, in Torah Gufa, we also have two levels of learning of Torah, what Torah would. Some parts of Torah, which is the esoteric parts of Torah, have no questions. Those are considered the peaceful Torah. And then when you have challenges and questions and answers, that's considered the battle of Torah. Has brought down in the Raya Mehemna in the Zohar, and also V'nizbayer b'Geras HaKodesh, and articulated in Geras HaKodesh, the Baal HaGeula of the Alter Rebbe, the ones whose redemption we're celebrating, that the B'Torah Hanigla is that in the revealed Torah that we study, that's called Eitz Hadas Toivara. That's from the tree of knowledge. There's good and bad. Yeshbo Kashio Machloikis. There's questions, there's disagreements over there. So there is a battle with Tzorich Liyes Milchamto Shel Torah. There needs to be the war of Torah. That subject matter of Torah is considered to be the war part of Torah. L'taretz u'levarer hamaskona. You have to answer and you have to figure out the conclusion. So that's one level. But upnimis ha-Torah, when we talk about the inner part of Torah, the Eitz HaChayim, that's not the Eitz HaDas Torah, that's the tree of life. The Leis Tamon Lekashiyachul, over there, there's no questions. The Adlem Ayonis Torah Baal Shem Tov, to the extent of the wellsprings of the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, which has been revealed in our generation, the teaching of Chasidus. That means to redeem in peace. In Torah meanings, first of all, studying the level of peace of Torah, which is the level of Pnimiyas HaTorah. And number two, to learn Torah, as he brought down before, in a way that you are not caught up in the physicality of the world, even though you're learning Torah in this world, but you are really learning Torah Bashamayim. And that would be that the general idea is to create a notion, like just in the world in general, we say that Torah is that the world sees entities, Gashmis, and God is a novelty, but to bring in that novelty, that's called a redemption. When we bring in spirituality into the world, that's the redemption. Dalet. This redemption can be either in a way of distance or closeness. So what he explains, and he comes up with the idea that this redemption is in a close way. Will understand it based on the explanation of the Alter Rebbe b'Maimer Hazal. Alter Rebbe explains the saying of our sages. They say, "Hamispalel tzorich sheyiten einov lemato v'liboy lemailo." One who davens needs to put his eyes below. In other words, when you're davening, you don't look outside and get distracted. You have to keep your eyes downwards to the ground, not to see anything else, but your heart, your heart should be above. So what does the Alter Rebbe explains? Alter Rebbe explains you have to put your eyes lamata means you have to be connected and to see the low, the below. What he says is like this: Hainu, even while your heart, even though while your heart is above, kosher lamaila, it's tied to above. You still need to be seeing the low, the world and its matters. So basically, as he explains, while you're very lofty and a very high level, but don't lose your connection with the bottom. You need to be tied and see. You need it while you're tied above. You need to see the low. You need to see the world and its matter. That means Einov is lamata. Al derech zeh yuvan b'limud haTorah. And similar to this, we'll understand by the Torah study of Torah. Shelimud haTorah tzorich liyes ba'ofen kozeh. When you study Torah, it needs to be in such a way that it brings you to action. It brings you to practical action. As our sages of blessed memory say, the study is great, it brings you to action. So, first of all, what you study shouldn't just remain in study, it should lead you to action. But within study itself, study halacha. You're learning in order to conclude the discussion according to the halacha. That means the conclusion to the pragmatic halacha in the worldly matter. That means while you're learning Torah, all the ideas, bring it down into Maisa. Specifically then, through learning in such a way, you come to the true understanding of what you're learning in the intention. Let's finish up and take a few more minutes. So the pasuk continues. So here we have it in Torah, בשלום, that you have to learn to, even if it's in Gashmius, you have to learn it in a way of connection בשלום. Mikrovli, you have to stay close to Torah, you have to stay lemaisa. And now we say kibarabim hoyimodi. Pirush halav bazeh. The first interpretation we said before, shekol zeh nasa dei tfilas rabim. All this is accomplished through the prayer of the many. Kafilu kisha asher odom b'Yisrael who betachlis hashlemus b'avedasa. Even when a Jewish person is complete, whole in his service, gam oz yesh maila b'tfilosei. So there is still an advantage when you daven, infinitely, unimaginably, no comparison when you daven with a minyan. So while you're davening, and a person, you may be a great person, you can daven, but there's no comparison at all to davening with a minyan. Tefillah sarabim, the tefillah of the many. Okay, move on. As we understand also from the prayer of the 10 days of tshuva, Shomer Azal, that Azal say that Hosam b'Yochid Hocha b'Tzibur, that it says the Eibishter is close to us b'Chol Koreinu Elov, whenever we call him. And then it says Krohu b'Yosef Korav, which means the 10 days of tshuva, we should call him only at that time. And the Gemara says Hosam b'Yochid, that when the Aseres Tshuva is only is by when you daven individually, Krohu. But B'tzibur the Eibishter always answers you. When the individual prays during 10 days of tshuva, that's equal to the many davening the rest of the year. Even in Aseres Yemei Tshuva, while the Yochid is compared to the individual, like the davening with a minyan throughout the year, but can you imagine when you daven with a minyan in Aseres Yemei Tshuva? It's not the same, it's a much higher level. So that's one interpretation. But Pirush Habeis, the Pasuk Zeh, the second interpretation of this pasuk that he includes the many together with him. So that is Mubon al Pi Mashemevi Bal Hageula B'Sidurei Meharizal. What the Alter Rebbe, the Bal Hageula, brings in the Siddur Harizal, Shenochen Leimer Koidem Hatfila, that it's proper to say before the davening, Hareini Mekabla Lai Mitzvahs Hasei Shel V'Ahavta L'Reich Kamoicha. He says, I accept upon myself the loving thy fellow like yourself. Amira Zu, Hilifnei Matoivu. We started before Matoivu. It extends to all the steps and all the levels of the davening. We say Matoivu, you do it before. So it goes Matoivu, that's the beginning, and Hoidu Lashem B'chulu. And then you do tefillas, then you do tefillas ha'amida, the standing prayer. Till we do Aleinu Shabech and Malkei Nekab. Sha'amra Yeshua ben Nun, that was said by Yeshua ben Nun, Shekovas es Eretz Yisrael b'pam Rishono. When he conquered Eretz Yisrael the first time, he says Malkei Nekab u'ba'ifan the Nachlas Oilom. He conquered it so that it remains for an eternal inheritance. The whole protim v'dargez, all of these levels, all the steps, mitfilo, heim b'shleimusam, they become wholesome. Ayidei kabolas mitzvahs eser shel ahavas Yisrael, by accepting the positive mitzvah of loving thy fellow. That's why before the davening we say, "I love thy fellow Yid." Hareini mekam mitzvahs v'ahavta l'reich kamoicha, and that is the prerequisite before we go to all these different levels. That's the second meaning in the Barabim Hoyu Imodi, including everybody, in order for my davening to be proper. And the first pshat in Barabim Hoyu Imodi, that it is the prayer of the Rabbim which accomplishes all this great levels of the Padiyah, etc. Maybe the will, the Rebbe blesses, that each one, man or woman, should do everything that is up to him, to fulfill the request, and the power that was given to him of the master of this redemption. The Alter Rebbe gave us the power to spread the well springs to the outside. Asher Yedua, and that it's known, the main idea of spreading the well springs to the outside, Hischil Achrei Peterburg, that began after the redemption. Peterburg was when the Alter Rebbe was incarcerated, and Yutus Kislev is the freedom. That's when it began, the spreading of the well springs. And we can say the Hainu Loy Rak Achrei Umesuvav This is not only after and as a result from the redemption of Peterburg that we can go ahead and spread the well springs. But this is actually a consequence of the actual incarceration. Rebbe quotes here from the sages that the olive, when you squeeze him, that's when he gives out the oil. The Alter Rebbe, being squeezed and incarcerated, gave the oil out, gave this extra. We can possibly say even more than that. That is why the Alter Rebbe was incarcerated for 53 days. Gan, the garden, today, the word Nun Gimel is spelled Gan, garden. Today, so that later on, the spreading of the wellspring should take place in God's garden, the Gan, in the Gan of Hashem, Olam Hazeh. From this we understand the great privilege to be occupied in spreading the well springs. To spread them out in all places where Yidden live, by men and for women. Like my father-in-law, the Rebbe said, that also women are obligated in the study of the teaching of Chassidus. Since the teaching of Chassidus leads a person to fulfilling the mitzvahs of Abba V'yira, and similar, which women are obligated. Also, women are obligated in the mitzvah. And how do you do that? Through Chassidus. So that means they have to learn Chassidus, v'chiyuvan tamidi, and this is a constant obligation, and it's not zman gromo, it's not time bound, which women are exempt. This is old kimavua muva b'agdoma sefer hachinuch, as brought down in the introduction of the book of Chinuch, and also behataf. Also the children. What are children? Laman yishmu, laman yilmadu, so that they can listen and learn from the pasuk by Hakil. The Shomru Lasis is called Divrei HaTorah Azois, to listen, to do all the words of the Torah. The Yiratzin, may it be the will. Shem blesses the Rebbe. Shekolachon ve'echod yasig b'zeh. Everybody should occupy himself in this. Ukideboyim properly. The Yiseidim Mizu, and more. The Yomim Achronim, in the last days, that are left from the exile. This will bring very soon, and in a good heart and joy. We'll go with our youth, with our elders, with our sons, with our daughters, to receive the face of our righteous Mashiach, and we'll go together with Mashiach Tzidkenu. Where all the Torahs of that's outside of Eretz Yisrael. All of these Sefer Torahs will be brought back. That this is an association with the Sefer Torah that they brought to the Rebbe. In general, it says all the shuls, all the study halls that are in Bavel or in Chutz La'aretz will all fly and all go to Eretz Yisrael, Eretz HaKodesh, the Holy Land. Very soon in a day, actually very soon, the Simcha B'Tum Levav, with joy and a good heart.